Welcome to Game Theorem, where we have serious discussions about absurd entertainment.
Hey Kira, so there's this new show that I really want to show you.
Sure, what is it about?
Well, okay, it's about a modern day kind of just like city kind of life, right? Mm-hmm. And everything is as you would expect in that scenario, right? But there's one thing, there's a notebook where if you write someone's name in it, that person dies.
Oh, wow, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it's an anime.
Anime?
Yeah, anime.
Isn't anime for kids?
How dare you! You also say it's supposed to be bad. Whatever. I'm Kyle.
I'm Kira.
And today we're talking about anime.
Yes.
Specifically, we're talking about Japanese animation. Mm-hmm. We're also talking about Japanese animation. So, I guess the first thing we should ask is, what is anime?
I think it's mostly a certain kind of art style as far as animation goes.
Well, first we're going to do the kind of common definition. It's a specific type of art style of animation and cartoons that are produced out of Japan.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's what a lot of, that's the shorthand for it.
Yes.
We'll revisit that topic.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to talk about, in this podcast, what people think when they think of anime. At least what a lot of Western people think, and especially a lot of what American people think, because that's the culture in which we live and is something that we have faced very often.
Oh, yes.
Like, do you have any particular experiences to think of, Kira?
Well, to be honest, I feel like the younger generation is more accepting of this kind of thing, so we don't have to deal with that as often, but definitely parents and such are really turned off by the idea of watching anything animated.
Yeah, the older generations.
Yes.
They think that anything that's like not live action is automatically for children.
Mm-hmm. Or that it might be like bad or weird just because it's animated.
And even though anime is completely different from Western cartoons,
Mm-hmm.
as far as they're concerned, it's animated and therefore for children. You hear this rhetoric a lot.
Yeah, even though, with the plot you described, it's like, there's no way that could be for kids.
True,
yeah, which anime do you want me to show your kids? Death Note?
So, to really get into this and why people will just write off entire types of entertainment and shows, I felt like we first really need to take a step back and talk about Western cartoons, American cartoons even.
Yeah, I have no idea about the history of cartoons, so.
Well, I did some research.
I know.
And, so why do people think cartoons are for kids? Well, America has a long history of treating cartoons like they're childish.
Yes. Why is that?
Well, cartoons were not originally that way. Cartoons originally, like the old Disney cartoons and Mickey Mouse, right? Mm-hmm. Like there were even World War II propaganda cartoons.
Oh, yes.
But that was kind of like family for everyone. Children and adults could love those. Mm-hmm. The problem is once we get to more recent in history, like the 80s and the 90s, for a long time, cartoons were lazily made purely to sell toys. Mm-hmm. They were considered basically 30-minute long advertisements.
For the toys.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's why they associated them with children, because, you don't sell toys to adults.
Name almost any type of cartoon that was made during the 80s or 90s, and it will probably fall into this category.
Mm-hmm. Until later on.
Like you have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Mm-hmm. You have Transformers.
Yes.
Come on, let's name some more.
I think the original My Little Pony might have been to sell toys.
I can't really talk about that one. I know there's a My Little Pony going on now that's not that.
Yeah, I know. It's newer and stuff.
I didn't know if there was an old one or not.
Oh, yeah. My Little Pony is really old, actually, I think.
Okay.
I don't remember when it first started.
But
Powerpuff Girls. That originally,
No. Powerpuff Girls had some quality to it, though.
Yeah, but a lot of it had merchandise.
Well, it's not about the merchandise. The merchandise can still happen. It's being made...
Power Rangers.
No, that's not it either.
Are you kidding me? That was such a...
Power Rangers has a very complicated history because it's actually a complete redub of a completely different Japanese show.
Oh, I did not know that.
Power Rangers is kind of its own thing.
Well, I thought it was to sell Power Ranger toys.
I mean...
Oh, G.I. Joe used to have cartoons, didn't they?
Maybe.
Yes, I'm pretty sure they did.
But I think we got the point. Mm-hmm. Now, I did say 80s and 90s, but obviously you could probably name some 90s ones because as we started to come out of this, where they'd still be merchandise, but you started like Powerpuff Girls, like they would actually start instilling some quality into these shows.
Yeah, I had like the comforter and dolls and stuff for Powerpuff Girls. Bubbles was my favorite.
And I think it's also important to mention that by trying to sell these things as just vehicles for toys, it ended up really reinforcing problematic gender roles because the toy industry for the longest time has been completely bifurcated down boy and girl.
Mm-hmm. And so the shows had to do the same thing.
Exactly. And video games did the same thing once Nintendo decided that video games were going to be sold in the boys' toy section. Mm-hmm. And that still echoes today throughout society.
Yes.
So yeah, that was a problem. It was only later towards the 90s and really more like today, you know, like there was a bit of a, like in 2000s, like I can't really name that many, right?
Well, I don't know when these shows started, so I wouldn't know.
It might be because of the recession, but I feel like today, like the 2010s, I feel like we have a lot more good content nowadays because I feel like a lot of producers behind animations realized that just sending out garbage after garbage to try to increase the amount of content they could produce just to get as much of it out there wasn't really a viable way to make sure children would watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they started to realize first in the 90s and then later on that you can make the show actually good and have some quality to it.
Yeah, to hook kids in.
Yes. So I feel like Powerpuff Girls was an early example of that.
Yeah, that was such a great show.
But I feel like today there's a lot of cartoons going on, like on Cartoon Network and whatnot.
Oh, yes. Like Steven Universe, Rick and...
Adventure Time.
Yeah, Adventure
Rick and Morty counts.
Oh, okay.
Although that one is targeted to adults, so it's a little different.
Yes. What else? I was thinking of more recent ones. Well, the regular show. That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, but is that one for adults or kids?
It's for kids. It's the blue bird and the raccoon.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yes.
I'm not completely caught up. Those are like on my to watch list. Mm-hmm. But so what you can see here is that they're making the cartoons actually have a lot of quality content to them. They can still merchandise. And I feel like Disney is really kind of the biggest example of this, where Disney's latest movies have been like really good quality, like really, like especially if they're animated movies, maybe not so much their TV shows, but like, but their movies, they tell phenomenal stories and they're still able to market the crap out of it.
Yeah, like Toy Story.
Yes. Literally for toys.
Yes. Although that was a great... I always wanted a Jessie doll, but not just any Jessie doll. I wanted a Jessie doll that was exactly like the one in the movie.
I don't think Toy Story is really their best work, though.
No, I mean, it isn't.
On a narrative level, because, you know, it's selling toys, that's what it's doing. On an animation level, it was like one of the first big budget 3D animations. Mm-hmm. On that level, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But, anyway, so, like, what?
I don't know. It kind of explored themes of growing up and...
It licensed actual toys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the Potato Head, for example.
Oh, yeah, it did.
Do you think that could have possibly been made if they didn't get permission from the Potato Head company?
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah.
I still really liked it, and later on it got into a more intricate story, like, you know, growing up and
later on, like when they made the third one like 10 years later.
You still liked it as a kid.
So the Toy Story franchise kind of...
You've got a friend
it spans the entire time of the history we're talking, so you really have to break down each individual movie if you wanted to really get into the details of this.
Yeah, fine.
I think some better examples of really doing the story right and still being able to merchandise it would be like Frozen or Wreck-It Ralph.
Oh, yes. Those were great.
Frozen, like, I don't care what any of you listeners think, Frozen is amazing.
Let it go.
Let it go. Okay, no. But, okay, I feel like part of that is, I mean, America really has a problematic relationship when it comes to animations. And Frozen, even though a lot of people resoundingly loved it, when it first came out, glorious reviews all over the place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So many children, especially little girls, which I would argue are some of the most hated children on the internet, really passionately loved it. And you know what? Maybe they loved it a bit too loudly for some people's enjoyment.
Yeah.
And because of that, a lot of people like backlash and they really retaliated. And to this day, Frozen gets some amount of hate, even if it's like objectively like a great movie from almost every critic out there.
Yeah, even like that specific song, "Let It Go," specifically gets a lot of hate because of how many.
Well, the song was the high point of the movie. Honestly,
yes.
It was completely written for that scene, that transformative scene. It was amazing and beautiful, and the lyrics of the song are something that anyone can relate to, especially minority audiences
and little girls.
Yes, that's true.
Specifically, little girls, because it's like. It kind of feels like growing out of it something or growing up
or embracing who you are.
Yes.
Yes. So that song, it's like I heard that song literally playing on the radio, but after like the 6-month mark, I never heard it again on the radio.
Yeah.
And because people retaliated against it. Also, I guess music doesn't last on the radio for very long.
Yeah, but in general, I think when little girls start to really love something,
then a lot of the older men say, it's for kids now. We can't do anything about it.
Exactly.
Although, I mean, they're really doing that from the very beginning, but the ones that were on the fence were like, I can't go in there. Too many little girls in there.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you could compare this to My Little Pony. I'm sorry, were you about to say that?
Yes. I was about to say how My Little Pony, like, it has a audience called, like, bronies or whatever, but, like, because it's so loved by little girls, everyone looks down on anyone who likes it as, it's something stupid for little girls,
Which is only because they've been indoctrinated to those gender roles from the crappy cartoons that they were seeing growing up.
Yeah, even when boy bands like have a hugely female audience, even when their music is good, they get like trashed.
Yeah, they're usually seen as being less good.
Yes, like they're seen as not being artistic or like viable in a real market because so many teenage girls love that specific artist or that specific band.
I don't have any stats to back that up, but that does make sense to me.
Big Time Rush. They got their own TV show.
I don't know who those are.
But
it's not that I'm just not interested in boy bands, but I'm also really not interested in bands in general.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anyway.
But, yeah.
So yeah, this is a problem. Oh, and Wreck-It Ralph, though. Wreck-It Ralph's my favorite movie.
Oh, yes, because it finally is a movie talking about video games.
I felt like it really blended the two seamlessly in the way that they got licenses to happen. Mm-hmm. I felt it was better, though, because it was with the video game industry, which I felt like has a lot of overlap with the computer animation industry.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited for the second one to come out.
Oh, definitely. Really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But my point is, these movies, they're definitely heavily franchised. You can buy so much merchandise. You can find Frozen cereal.
Yes.
Wreck-It Ralph actually appears as a playable character in a Sonic game.
Wow.
Yeah, so, they're definitely marketed, but they're intrinsically good because Disney realizes they're only going to be able to keep their status as like the big AAA budget CGI movie maker if they can at least make the content good.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, a competitor like, I don't know, DreamWorks might be able to overtake them.
Yes. I don't know who made this one, but Inside Out was really good.
Disney.
Disney made that one?
Yeah, just Disney.
I wasn't sure which one made it because DreamWorks is separate from Disney, apparently.
Yeah, Pixar and DreamWorks used to be enemies, except Disney bought Pixar and Marvel and Star Wars, and they're about to buy Fox. So, anyway, Yeah, we've come a long way with animation, but we still got a long way to go. Mm-hmm. These better cartoons, I feel like, is what makes a lot of younger people that are growing up on these cartoons more receptive and positive to it. I remember I watched Wreck-It Ralph and got laughed by my parents by like, why are you watching that kid's show? But then they came back later and I was watching the credits because I was wanting to see like who, if I recognized any of the animators that were in the credits, right? Mm-hmm. And then they're like, oh yeah, he does that for a living.
Wow.
And that's one thing you have to think. No matter how childish you think cartoons are, adults are the ones who make them.
Yes.
This episode is supposed to be about anime. You might wonder why we're talking about cartoons so much. Because a lot of us, what we're trying to talk about is like where Americans and Western audiences, I don't want to speak for all Western audiences, but I bet you could find similarities in other countries besides America. Mm-hmm. And by America, I mean the United States of America.
Yes.
So I feel like it's important to talk about our perspective and where we've been and why you might get a lot of that, because they see cartoons, both of, of just, the regular drawn kind as well as 3D, right? Mm-hmm. They apply those same feelings whenever they see things such as anime.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And it has probably sharper lines, different styles. They might not really care about that. All they see is that it's animated. Mm-hmm. So one thing, though, that is important to consider with anime is that it doesn't have such a childish reputation in Japan.
No, it really doesn't. Like, this whole implication that it's for children and that it's not good is entirely Western.
Yes, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Anime really stands out, though, as a kind of animation that's really not limited by tradition. And there is definitely like unconscious tradition of like the classic animes and gender roles and that kind of stuff in it, but there is a lot of room for experimentation and new ideas in anime.
That's why I feel all the time their plots are just crazy. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yes, like different plots and scenarios are really encouraged in anime.
And because Japan doesn't have that childish reputation, they have anime and and manga, which anime is based on, throughout all of all the genres. They have some for little boys, little girls, teenage boys, teenage girls, adults.
Yeah,
all kinds.
They have it throughout all stuff that's appropriate for all ages. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that I used to read a lot of rom-com manga.
Oh.
Yes. Like High School Debut, Stepping on Roses, Ouran High School Host Club. Yeah, I read those manga. And for Ouran High School Host Club, I watched that anime. And it's like one of my favorite anime to this day. It actually has a pansexual and gender fluid main character.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So one thing that anime does that Western cartoons don't seem to do as frequently is cover these adult topics. Uh-huh. Because in America, we look down upon adult cartoons so much, to the extent that, maybe 10 years ago, you could probably, or maybe 20 years ago, you could name only like 3 or 4 actual popular animated cartoons for adults. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure there are more than that, right? But there's a few that everyone could name, like Family Guy, for example. Or better yet, even The Simpsons.
Yeah, but they got a reputation as being really vulgar and sort of like distasteful.
But that's why the adults loved it.
Yeah, I know, but it was still looked down upon, even adult cartoons.
I mean, maybe. I didn't have that experience. In my opinion, like The Simpsons, it was kind of looked upon as the exception. Like, oh yeah, cartoons are for kids. What about The Simpsons? Oh, they're all right.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And another thing that proves that animated cartoons and manga and that kind of stuff gets to explore more adult topics is the fact that they get to have stuff like a pansexual gender fluid character and have it not be that big a deal. Because I've never seen that kind of thing in more...
Well, America's very homophobic. You can't have anything that's not completely hetero or they might flip out.
Yeah.
What are you teaching our children? To be accepting of people of differing backgrounds? How dare you?
I don't know if I think Japan has a sort of problem with that too, though.
Oh, I'm certain they do. I don't know the extent.
I think because they have a bigger population and a bigger, like, younger generation, it's becoming more accepted because the younger generation is being more accepting of it.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, it's conscious versus unconscious gender roles. Yes, they are willing to, like, oh yeah, let's have crazy monsters and space jets and, oh, what if we had a world but with a book that kills you, right? They'll have all of that. But then the unconscious roles, like, hey, maybe the woman doesn't have to be your loyal wife or your pet, right? They're like, whoa, what?
Although, to be fair, they do now have a culture of gay relationships.
Well, yes, things are now better than they have ever been.
True.
But, okay, so where we leave off, we were kind of getting distracted there. But yeah, interesting stories can be happening in anime. I think that's really the point.
Yes.
So now that we've talked a bit about what anime is, how it differs from Western cartoons, and where as the West, as English speakers, as Americans, how our society tends to treat it, especially the older generations. I think we've pretty much disproven the idea that they're for children, right? I think we've proven the idea that anime should be taken seriously on the content at which they are made about. It's just a different way of telling it. You can have the same story as live action or anime, and you can tell the same compelling narrative. Obviously, how to make them is completely different, but still, you get the point, right? Right?
Yes. I think definitely that all the art styles are very equal and definitely equal to live action because they can tell such interesting stories. All of them can.
Well, like, I mean, I don't know about calling all art styles equal. That's a bit of a sweeping generalization, don't you think?
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like they're not restricted in what stories they can tell. It doesn't matter whether you're doing live action or Western animation or Japanese animation.
Or like live action. Did you say that?
Yes,
I sorry.
Did. You can still tell really complicated, diverse stories.
I mean, I would argue animation gives you more freedom to do that.
Yeah, but in general, like you're not restricted to the story you can tell based on, what you're using. So, like, looking down on it just because it's animated is ridiculous because they can tell the same, even better stories.
Well, I think it's also important to realize the cultural lens.
Yes, definitely.
So I feel like that's also part of it. Like, you're basically saying, we've had our own cartoons, but we have our own kind of echo chamber, right? Let's hear another perspective, another country, another culture, right? And see what stuff they turn out. And I feel like that's why it can sometimes be interesting. It's kind of like what we talked about in our fantasy episode, that Japanese fantasy kind of always has an advantage because it always seems more interesting when really they're just pulling from a different culture.
Yes, definitely. And I think something that also gets looked down on in anime is that Japan isn't afraid to talk about more taboo topics like sexuality and stuff. So, like, people look down on anime as like, oh, that's too vulgar just because they're taking sexuality seriously.
Maybe, but I feel like a lot of the time it's just kind of a joke or a punchline. I guess it really depends on the type of anime you're seeing. And I feel like that point's further complicated by the fact that like the Japanese age of consent is lower than it is in a lot of Western countries, including America.
Yeah, I suppose
so that's why you get some problematic stuff like involving high school, for example. So that's kind of a whole complex thing I'd rather not get into.
All right, that's fine.
So, okay, we've been going on for a while, kind of just touching here and there different parts of the conversation of what makes anime anime and why people judging it harshly might be misinformed. It might be kind of indoctrinated from what they accept as the norm for television, both cartoons and live action.
Yes, definitely. The norms play a huge part in it.
I should point out, by the way, if you're not sure what live action is, it's just like a normal movie with a camera shooting actors. I think it's important, though, we have to revisit the definition of anime that we asked at the very beginning of this podcast.
Yes, definitely.
Because how do you actually define anime? How do you distinguish between that and what we might call typical cartoons? Right?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's something that's important that we're going to have to talk about. What's your take on it?
I'm not sure about the definition of anime exactly because, like, you could say, oh, it's any animated stuff coming from a specific country, Japan. But in that case, it's like there's still widely varying art styles and widely varying, genres and such.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are different takes on it, and some of them are quite unique. But yeah, that is what most people would say. Most people would say that anime are basically just cartoons from Japan. Mm-hmm. And they look different because it's from a different culture and society, but they're just Japanese cartoons. Mm-hmm. I would maybe argue against that. Actually, I would definitely argue against that.
Oh, yes. I think that some stuff produced elsewhere can still have that anime quality, whatever you want to label it.
Well, you have to think about Japan's history with animation, right? Mm-hmm. It was only after World War II that they really boomed in all their technological centers and information centers, mm-hmm. right? Of their industry.
Yes.
So it's only been in like the past few decades that anime has really boomed, being based on the manga, their traditional comic books.
Yes.
And a lot of the way that's how a lot of anime is actually made. That's first made as a manga and then it's turned into into an animation. And mm-hmm. it's kind of similar to how we a lot of time make live action movies based on books. Mm-hmm.
Although we fail a lot more at that than...
It's done a lot more regularly with manga and anime.
Yeah.
Although I'm certain there are plenty of manga that never make it to anime.
Oh, that's definitely true.
And I think that kind of irks me a little bit. There's so much anime that never gets finished. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Like they have a whole manga and then like you finish the anime and you have to go read the manga to finish the story.
Yeah.
Because they never finished it.
Yeah.
But okay, that's here nor there. Yeah, so we mentioned there's controversy in the definition, right? Anime is a lot bigger than it ever has been. It's been able to go outside the bounds of Japan and so Western audiences can enjoy it, right? Mm-hmm. And as you said, many anime, or at least what would be anime, has appeared elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
Can you name some examples?
Yeah, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and even a web series, Ruby.
Right. Is that similar to anime?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Avatar... It's basically in that style with 3D models.
Awesome.
Yes.
So, Avatar, what, did you want to say something else about it?
No, I was saying Avatar: The Last Airbender was an amazing show.
Right, but it's often kind of at the center of this debate. Because it was a very popularized animation, cartoon, anime. Like, people couldn't really decide on which word they wanted to use.
Yeah, because wasn't it produced here in America?
I think so. I know it wasn't produced in Japan.
Yeah. And so that's what caused people to debate over it, because, like, if it wasn't from Japan, then can you really call it anime? Yeah.
And some people are staunchly against it. They're like, it's not anime, it's not authentic, it's not from Japan. Mm-hmm. I disagree with that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we're in an age where amazing animation is being made all over the world, right?
Yes.
And there's so many blendings of styles. There's even Japanese anime that try to take on Western styles. You can find plenty of examples.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And that's the same with the West. You find examples of Eastern culture affecting them. Mm-hmm. And what styles. Wasn't Teen Titans kind of in an anime-like style?
Oh, yes, the original.
Right.
We're going to pretend that none of the ones after that existed.
Ever since they had that Weird Al episode, though, I feel like I should give it a chance.
No.
Come on, Weird Al's awesome. Okay, whatever. Oh, I should have mentioned this earlier. Also, in Japan, the word anime literally is just referring to animation. So literally any cartoon or animation, when called by an actual Japanese person, they would refer to it as anime, including Avatar and any of these other ones. I will make one consolation that I've known artists that really didn't like anime because they felt it was lazier in art.
How so?
Well, because cartoons, like, you have to draw every frame, or at least, use the computer to do that for you. Mm-hmm. And so you get fluid motion, at least to some degree. Mm-hmm. Whereas in anime, it's a common thing to have completely still frames all over the place.
Oh.
Like a character could be talking is literally still, it's the same frame, but their mouth is moving. Mm-hmm. And I can understand how that can upset people. If you're an artist and you like watching animation for the art, if that's more important to you than the story, then I could very well understand why you might dislike anime.
Yeah,
because
but
what you're doing is
are worth it, honestly.
Well, yes, I agree, but it's having a preference over the art style. And that's why I didn't want to say all art styles were equal per se.
Yeah, I guess
but
that's fair.
They all had the capacity, I feel, to tell good stories, and I think that's what's important. Mm-hmm. You'll have to also consider that when it comes to anime, what they're trying to do is save on resources. They have a process where they hand draw things, they convert it into animation, right?
Yeah.
And there have been many many cartoons in the West where we did the same thing, just kind of different methods, like reusing old backgrounds and not putting in much effort. That's why pretty much any cartoon movie that ever became a cartoon TV series dropped in quality.
Yeah, because they had to produce more of it, so they reused a lot of stuff.
Exactly. And that's why you would find a lot of episodes happening in like the same backgrounds.
Yes.
So that's important to consider. But when it comes to defining what anime is, I feel that restricting geography on anime is imposing limitations on art that still struggles to overcome the limitations that have imposed on it from the most sluggish of society for nearly a century.
You're very passionate about that.
Thank you.
Although, to be fair, a century, really? More like a couple decades.
Hey, no. Mickey Mouse was developed in the 1920s.
Oh, really?
It's almost 2020.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay, never mind.
And I'm certain you could probably find some anime from before World War II. It probably is pretty dated, though. Because it only really took off after World War II.
Fair enough. But yeah, I agree with you completely. Like, limiting anime as something made from Japan is ridiculous because everything's so globalized these days that people can pick up art styles from other cultures.
Yes, and you know what? Anime is from Japan. Yes, like that is where the style originates. Mm-hmm. But I feel like anyone can use a style. Anyone can blend it, tweak it, make it their own, or pay homage to it.
Yeah.
Because how much has anime affected you, right? And if you're going to be an artist and you're going to make your own animation, you might be very well intending to do anime, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
And, to avoid any topics of cultural appropriation, just do your research. Make sure you do it right.
Yeah, and honestly, it's an art style. Art, I feel, is something that isn't really owned by any one society or culture.
Hey, I better not see you doing any pointillism unless you are from Europe. I'm kidding.
Yeah. But you understand what I mean, right?
Oh,
they're from other cultures, but art styles aren't,
limited to that.
Yes, exactly. They cross over as we become more globalized and accepted,
Right.
Talking to other people and taking cues from other cultures and such.
So if you asked what anime was, I would answer that. Actually, you try your answer first.
I would say that it is a style of animation that originated in Japan, but has since grown and blossomed into so many different styles and types, and it can tell any story it wants.
Okay. I would say that maybe anime is a style of animation, of art and animation that originated from manga produced in Japan, and just leave it at that. That's where it originated. From where it goes from there, it can go anywhere.
Yeah. All right. I think that's a better definition.
Thank you. So yeah, that's what we think anime is. So we still have some time in this episode to really drive our point home that anime can be good despite what some people might think. We've compiled a list of what we feel are examples of some of the best anime ever. And hey, if your list doesn't match this, that's totally fine. There are certain to be some great anime out there that we haven't seen. Because there's just so much. I kind of wish I spoke Japanese, at least fluently, so that I might be able to just see the ones that were never translated. Can you imagine how much culture I'm missing?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I mean, you can say that about any language, but anime, Japan.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. If you guys have never watched anime, I would I would really encourage you to at least check out these as your first picks. Because not all anime are winners. You know, there's so many types and genres. What might work for you, you might not care about that genre. You know, you might be a fan of My Little Pony and you might be more interested in like magical girl anime. You might not be serious into the adult stuff. And, you know, that's perfectly fine. Because that's the thing with anime, just like with like live action movies, they can fall in any genre.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So we'll take turns. You pick one, I pick one. We'll take turns.
All right.
But we can still say stuff about both. We got plenty of time.
I'm going to start with Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think about that anime? Sorry, I might be rubbing it in, but...
Why?
I don't know. Some of our listeners might not be happy with our decision, but I hope that our points were convincing enough. But because of our decision, that means we are in the right to put Avatar: The Last Airbender on a list of the best anime, even though it's not produced in Japan.
It was one of the best stories, honestly, that was told. And I know you never got to see the ending, but it was so great.
Don't spoil the ending.
Yes, I'm not going to spoil it.
Why don't you? Okay, try pitching it to someone who's never heard it before.
Okay, I'm actually. You know what? I'm going to start with the beginning part because this has become an internet meme.
Okay.
There once existed 4 nations living together, peace and harmony. Air, water, earth,
fire.
That is until the Fire Nation attacked. And basically the premise is that there are these benders of these 4 elements, and they have the power to bend these elements to their will.
Yeah, it's kind of like almost like a magic thing where like you can use like some type of chi to alter an element, but every person can only alter one element. If that.
And not everyone is a bender.
Yeah, you have to be trained.
And so basically the premise of the show is that the Fire Nation, the firebenders, have decided to take over the other nations. And so there's a war going on, and there's supposed to be a magical leader that is a bender of all 4 elements.
The Avatar.
Yes.
Who is supposed to like protect the world or something?
Yes, he's supposed to bring peace and harmony.
Is it always a he?
No, it isn't actually.
So they.
They're supposed to bring peace and harmony between all 4 elements. But just when the Fire Nation started its war, the Avatar disappeared. So
right, but they bring peace, and that's why they have all 4 to be able to make sure that happens.
Yes, exactly. That's why they can bend all 4 elements.
And I forget exactly what happened here, but the Avatar is supposed to reincarnate.
Yes, exactly. The Avatar is reincarnated throughout the generations.
So they try to put a stop to that.
They basically have to bring harmony between all 4 nations. And the newest Avatar is a 12-year-old airbender who was frozen for 100 years while the Fire Nation waged its war.
I think, stop me if I'm getting into spoiler territory, but I think it's pretty early on that it's revealed that the entire... Are you going to stop me or not?
Yeah, I'm going to stop you, actually, because they don't talk about that.
Really?
Not until later.
Okay. No, we're not going to spoil too much. So yeah. There's your pitch for the show. I think it's really interesting. I really want to finish it.
The whole until the Fire Nation attacked was a huge internet meme.
Okay. So next one. There's a category, an entire category, but really it's just kind of a brand of anime. I think they're called Miyazaki films. They're the ones produced by Studio Ghibli. I might be conflating the two. And if I could recommend just one of them, I would recommend Spirited Away.
Yes.
So this is an anime movie, and it is phenomenal. Like it's all about this little girl, and she's being forced to move to an unfamiliar town, and on the way they stop at like this traditional abandoned Japanese area, and while she's there, these spirits take her parents away. And she ends up having to work as like I guess janitor is the best way to say it, in order to try to earn her parents' freedom. And she literally is working at a bathhouse for all like the different spirits and yokai that populate that mythical place. Mm-hmm. And it's really dependent on Japanese culture, but like it was the first time I ever got to experience that as a kid, and it just looked so wondrous and magical to me. And it was scary, but the stakes were real, and it was still a good story. I felt like it didn't expect me to not take it seriously. Like sometimes I feel like when you watch children's stuff, like in Western cartoons, especially at the time when I was young, that they didn't really respect your intelligence.
Yeah,
they gave you some trivial plot, you know? Mm-hmm. But this was serious. She was poor and broke, had to try to work to free her parents.
Yeah.
In a world she didn't understand. Uh-huh. And I felt like the yokai were really kind of standing in for just a girl being in a new town.
Uh-huh. It was a really interesting story.
Definitely.
Don't spoil too much.
No, I just told her the premise. I mean, I guess I spoiled it if you're watching the first 10 seconds. Like, oh, she's in a car. What's going to happen? I think that's enough to get them interested. Because that's the thing about a pitch. You got to tell them a little bit.
Yes.
All right. You got anything you want to add to that?
No, I agree with you. It's beautiful. Like, you really have to experience it to get it, you know?
Or no yokai.
Yeah.
Okay, your turn.
All right. There's a whole genre of anime or manga called like Magical Girl.
Oh yeah, we hinted that it's like primarily targeted at young girls, and it's kind of like the superhero genre for boys, except for girls.
Uh-huh. And actually, I think one of the earlier ones was Sailor Moon. I think it might have been even one of the first ones.
I would definitely call that Magical Girl.
Uh-huh. And this one I'm talking about is called Madoka Magica. And
it's about this young girl. Was she in elementary or middle school?
Middle school. I think just in middle school. And
she meets some other friends that turned out to be magical girls, and she joins them, and together they get to fight these mean witches, right? Mm-hmm. And they all get to work together, and they're all happy, and they get to use amazing powers, and she idolizes them. It's just a really heartwarming anime. Mm-hmm. But there's a twist, okay? Yes. And spoiler alert, okay? I think we need to tell you this to be able to give you the pitch, but it is a spoiler, big spoiler. So there's a big twist that...
None of that is true.
Yeah.
Basically, these girls have to give a wish to a creature to become magical girls. Except this wish, when they become magical girls,
is what dooms them.
The witches they fight
are the future versions of themselves.
Yes. Are magical girls who have fallen into despair. And every magical girl is doomed to become a witch.
Yeah, and they know this because they pull it out from under the rug. Like the first 3 episodes are all happy magical girl. Like it looks like any other magical girl anime, but they subvert this trope and they turn it into almost like a thriller or a horror, where like in the I don't want to spoil exactly, but basically like it's all magical girl happy and stuff until a character just gets gruesomely killed out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. And basically, the reason that this process exists, them becoming magical girls and then eventually becoming witches, is because of what?
Are you about to spoil something big?
We already said spoiler warning.
Yeah, for the big twist, but we don't need to tell them the ending.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah, we're not going to tell them the ending.
Well, I wasn't going to tell them the ending. I was going to be like, why do they...
Would you find out at the ending?
Yeah, okay, fine. You don't find out why they do this until the end.
Like, what's the purpose behind this thing?
Yes.
Okay, so next. You want to go again?
No, it's your turn.
Okay. Death Note.
Oh, my God.
So, I kind of pitched it earlier, but I'll do it again. It's a modern world. Everything is a normal modern society, like you think.
It's modern day Japan.
Yes. Except it turns out that Shinigami are real. Mm-hmm. And they possess this book called The Death Note. Mm-hmm. The person who acquires it, who's this young college-age boy.
High school.
Well, he becomes college age later on.
Yeah, he starts at the end of his high school career.
Right. He acquires the book. and realizes what it's able to do. And that's the get-go. That's the premise, right? Mm-hmm. From that point forward, it's just saying, well, what would happen? What would happen if just a regular high school boy got that kind of power? Mm-hmm. And the entire rest of the story is from a real-world perspective.
Oh my God. You know what? I don't know if this would spoil anything, but like when you think about it, doesn't that show like real toxic masculinity, what he becomes with that kind of power?
Yeah, it kind of does in a way.
Yeah.
Especially the way he treats the love interest.
Yes. And the way he treats the Shinigami and like how he feels about his power.
Yeah. I guess if I'm going to pitch this to an American audience, at least predominantly American, say hi if you're not American. I know we only got a few of you. But how was I going to say this? Sorry. It's kind of like Breaking Bad in that the main character is the antagonist.
Yes. And you find this out right away.
Oh, yeah. I hated this guy. It's like, some people love him.
Yeah. My favorite character was L. So.
Right. Who is the quotations antagonist, but really the protagonist.
Yes, he is.
Anyway, definitely recommend that. Next.
Yes. Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh my God,
okay, so what's
yes.
your pitch?
Okay, so this is a world where alchemy exists, and alchemy is basically...
instead of science, they have alchemy.
Yeah, instead of science, they have alchemy. And this alchemy is basically transmuting. It's turning things into other things. And it's bound by this law of equivalent exchange.
Okay.
Basically, you can't get more out of something than you put in.
All right, okay. Good try, but I feel like that's too complicated of a pitch. I feel like we should make this simple, okay? If you want to listen to or watch Full Metal Alchemist, here's my recommendation. Here's what it is. It's a world where what if instead of science being real, turned out that alchemy was real instead. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Like the rest of the story, like you were saying, that's all great and awesome. And it's fun to see how that turns out. But it's just such a simple, ingenious idea. Mm-hmm. And like there's this law called equivalent exchange, mm-hmm. where you can only put something in as much as you get out.
Yeah.
So it's not like magic, even though I guess in a way it is, but no, it's like it's their version of science. Mm-hmm. And there's rules about it.
Yes.
For example, there's this common thing that comes up in that how much is a human soul worth? Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to do alchemy with a soul, how can you possibly abide the law of equivalent exchange?
Yes. That's a big question that comes up. And there are actually 2 versions of this anime. Which one do you recommend?
There was a manga, but they made the first anime in 2009. It's just the 2009 version. Mm-hmm. And, or was it 6? I think it was 9. Mm. Where they caught up to the manga and they decided, you know what? We're just going to write our own ending. And so it deviates. It's like 2 alternate timelines. You got the 2009 version, which goes off one direction, and then you have the Brotherhood version that was made later, and that sticks more to the manga. Mm-hmm. If you're going to watch it, I highly recommend you watch the 2009 version first, and just be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then you watch the other one as kind of like an alternate timeline or an alternate universe version of it. That's how I would prefer to interpret it, because they both start in the same place, but they end up in very different places.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yep.
All right.
My turn now?
Yes.
We got one more. Steins Gate.
Oh, my God.
Here's my pitch, okay? What? No. Shh. Okay. Here's my pitch. It's a story about this young man who invents time travel. Mm-hmm. But it's not like the scientific, futuristic sci-fi time travel you see in the movies. It's very simple and limited. He can send a text message into the past. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Or at least that's it at the beginning of the show. Mm-hmm. It develops and you'll see where it goes from there. But it's a really interesting story. And it's based on a visual novel game, which is different than some of these other anime.
Yes.
But it's a really interesting story, and he has many female friends, And like in different timelines, he ends up with different ones of them. Which might sound bad at first, but each character is very significantly broken down and humanized.
And it's a very realistic depiction of like what would actually happen if you literally were able to invent something like that.
Right, but I don't think this is too spoilery to say that as he changes time, he starts realizing every time he does so, the consequences grow more severe, almost like a butterfly effect. Mm-hmm. I think we should also mention the non-binary character.
Oh, which one?
I mean, I don't want to spoil too much, but I'll just go ahead and do it. Luca.
She's...
Okay, actually, maybe non-binary.
No, she's not non-binary.
Okay, what would you call her?
She's transgender.
But no.
No, she wants to be female.
Oh, okay. It's just I guess she never she's
transgender.
Okay, I'm sorry. I used the wrong phrase.
Yeah.
But it's just never in the show do they actually get to the point of calling her a woman? Mm-hmm. Well, I guess actually. Okay, I can't say any more without spoiling. I'm sorry, guys. I keep dancing around it.
Yeah.
But there is some definite, some interesting exploration of that. Mm-hmm. But don't worry, if you're more into hetero, there is a very hetero guy that spends all of his time watching inappropriate or playing inappropriate anime games. So there's something for everyone. And so yeah, those are some of our most favorite anime.
Yeah, Steins Gate was the best one.
Definitely.
I'm sorry.
Don't say
I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm just saying the feels.
Oh yeah, definitely feelings for everyone.
Yes.
So yeah, I think this has given a good overview. Honestly, I really hope we can break down each of those anime someday. But I really wanted to introduce anime in an interesting way. Last episode we talked about Fairy Tail.
Yes.
So we wanted to try to talk about just anime in general after we did that, because that was your typical shonen fighty anime. Those ones are marketed at boys, right?
Yeah.
We wanted to show that there was more than just those types of stories.
Yeah, exactly.
And that I feel some of the best shows I have ever watched were anime.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree.
And I'm not just like a Japanophile. I'm not just a Japanese fanatic. Or anime fanatic. I truly believe that these are some great works of art.
Yeah, I completely agree.
All right. So I hope that might convince some of you guys to give these a chance. We mentioned a whole bunch of things. And so, yeah, check it out.
Mm-hmm. Definitely go check those anime out.
You have anything else you want to say?
I really liked manga and anime as a teenager and have just liked it more as an adult now that I actually see such complicated and great stories. Because when I was a teenager, all I did was read shoujo and watch shoujo anime.
That one anime you mentioned, that would be considered that, right?
Yeah, or on High School Host Club.
Right.
Although it does have a pansexual, gender fluid character, which is amazing when you realize.
But that could still be considered that genre, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that doesn't really have any bearing on that.
Yes, but I'm basically saying, like, as I grew older, I got to see even these much better stories in the same kind of style. I just liked it even more.
Cool.
I still like those shoujo anime and manga, though. I still like it.
All right. Well, so this is Game Theorem. Mm-hmm. We have social media. We also have emails. Email us at gametheorems@gmail.com if you have any corrections that you would like to make, any comments or feedback, or even suggestions for podcast episodes if you really wanted.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
And we have social media at Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and we're also on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, whatever.
We're not on LinkedIn.
I said that one again?
Yes.
That's like... I keep... Crap. Whatever. Bye.
Bye.